Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Good evening, folks, lads and lasses. How are we this evening? I saw your post, Jeanette, that you weren't going to miss tonight. Nice to see you here. Trisha's here, as always, usually the first. Toady, how are you doing, buddy? Tyler Russell, yes, it fishes jigs. How you doing, my friend? James Shembry's in the house. Curtis is here. Sally is here. Mike Berenz, Brad Frost. Holy smokes, look at that. Latilla. Hi, it's been a while. Glad to be back. Some good folks. We're glad to have you back, Attila. Makes my drive home in traffic work. Thank you, Tyler. That's awesome. I love hearing stuff like that. Hey, from Quinn, how you doing? Shane and Leslie Richard. David, how you doing, buddy? Lawrence is in the house. Yes, he is. He's backstage. Jason as well. We're just waiting on Jim to show. He has said, do not worry. Never fear. Robin Hood will soon be here. Sean Quinn's here. Long time no speak, Scottie. Hope all is well. It is now that you're here, Sean. All is well. Yes, nice hoodie, Walter. Courtesy of Camp Macintosh. We're going to get to that real soon. But before, greetings to all. We are going to have a great night of discussion. There's some really cool topics that we're going to bring up that I want you guys to stay tuned to. Of course, this is the Power Hour. We're going to try and get it all done and jammed in an hour. First, unfortunately, we have to start on a sad note. Barry informed me that Barry and Sally have lowered the CFN flag yet again. For no other reason than I think it's a great time to think about and pay our respects to our CFN family who is missing family of their own. And Steve Shaw, unfortunately, will not be with us, so there will be no tagging unfortunately tonight. So you're going to see that because, Steve's usually all over that. But the Shaw family is doing something to commemorate the loss of their daughter, Serena, tonight. So our thoughts are with the Shaw family. I also want, on that note, I also want to thank all of you CFNers that we collected the last bit of the Serena CFN slush fund, and we have managed to put together $5,000 that will somehow, some way, make a CFNer that's having a bad day a good day. So thanks to all who participated, all the incredible donations, but we have managed to put together $5,035 into that slush fund so that we can somehow, some way, make it a brighter day for someone who's having a bad day. So to the Shaw family, our thoughts are with you. Richard Elliott, of course, who lost his father recently. And just the other day, unfortunately, Christina Kodaluk made it known to everyone that she lost her grandfather, and her grandmother, I believe, is still in hospital to a tragic car accident that unfortunately took her grandfather, Lloyd, took his life. So very, very unfortunate to the Kodaluk family, and of course, the entire family, the 14 family, everyone. Our thoughts are with you, but Barry, good on you, buddy, for lowering the flag in honor of these three families. As I said, when we lose when our CFN family loses family members, it means a lot to us. It's everyone's family. So it's like we lost Lloyd, and I don't even know the man, but any family member of Christina's is a family member of ours. Also, I want us to also think about the folks and CFNers that are out in the BC area. I think it was described by a meteorologist that it is a river of water that this province is yet again dealing with. And it's right at the beginning stages of yet another deluge out in BC. So, to all our CFNers and family members who have family members out in BC, our thoughts are with you guys, because that province as it is right now is almost impassable. But I can't imagine it's going to get worse, but it is. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. So, yeah, anybody who has the ability to speak to the Father above. I know we all do, but some speak a lot more than others. And if you could send some prayers out that way, they need it. I'd love nothing more than to see them with a white Christmas, because they've seen nothing but a sea of brown water and landslides and everything else. So anyway, tough for them to deal with, but they will get through it, I'm sure, as all us Canadians will find a way to adapt. But they are definitely dealt a bad hand right now. Also, a big shout out to Cameron Tate, who joined us last Thursday. Did another incredible walleye recipe. If you didn't see it, please go back into our timeline on CFN and have a look. It was a delicious recipe, and as always, Cameron makes it look so easy. He hasn't made a promise because, as you know, the Christmas season gets very busy. He would like to be back here before Christmas, but no guarantees. But let's hear, fingers crossed, that we manage to get him back. But a big shout out to Cameron Tate for doing that with us, and all of the recipes that he shares. As I said, cooking with CFN has never been the same without him, and it won't be the same without him. So I'm glad that he continues to come here every now and again to do a quick and easy recipe that I tell you is certainly delicious. Now, as a reminder, the Christmas season is almost upon us. I think somebody said there's 3 more Sundays before Christmas. Hard to believe, eh? Like, where did 2021 go? Holy smokes, man. It's almost hard to believe. But some Christmas ideas that have a CFN, sort of swing to it. I want to bring your attention, of course, to True North Baits, and I am trying to find where it is. Holy smokes, it was here just a second ago. Oh, yes, down here. Our cups are available. I don't know if you've seen them, but our CFN cups, I'll show you a quick video. I don't know if you can hear me, so just have a look if you can. These are the Big Frig, just like the Yetis. They have a CFN flavor to them. They are available at truenorthbaits.com. Now, our good buddy Jamie David is running a Black Friday sales. I don't know if those cups are on sale or not, but if you're interested in getting something that is very, very similar, if not just as good or better than a Yeti, have a look. It's a great idea. Also, the Signature Series. I don't know if folks noticed that our friends over at One Last Cast have a Black Friday sale for the walleye hoodie. And you've seen these running around. The McKnights have. There's a whole bunch of you that have them. And we're so proud to see it, because it was something that I was a little concerned about putting together. I wasn't sure how it was going to be received. We completely gave up any chance of profiting from this in order to keep the cost down to you CFNers, because I just wanted to see you in something that looks really, really cool. And from what I understand, One Last Cast has a Black Friday sale. So if you haven't got yours and you were looking for that certain something that had a CFN swag flavor to it, there you go. Courtesy of One Last Cast. So make sure, and as I said, if Steve was here, he would be tagging the webpage. If you need direction, reach out to me, and I will certainly point you in the right direction. Also, on top of that, spots are still available for our CFN retreats. And I say it plural because as it is right now, of course, we're hoping to have this fantastic group back, the Horwood Lake Lodge. We'd like to have more of you, but as it is right now, from what I've gathered, speaking to certain people and not the owners themselves, which I regretfully admit, but it is the God honest truth. We are half full, so there are still spots available at Horwood Lake Lodge. So if you're looking to book something for next year, just have a quick look at this. And anybody who's gone, they know how good it is. So we'd love to see you there. Also, this will be the first annual Western retreat, and our good buddy Walter is putting this together at Young Lake Lodge. I will play a video just to show you what is coming in the summer of 2022. Yon Lake, as it is right now, I believe we have over a dozen confirmed folks that are going to be going to this retreat. Yon Lake Lodge has been very, very willing to host this. It is quite a fishery for anyone who knows it, who has enjoyed it, has been there. It's quite something, but it is a Western retreat, and it is up at Yon Lake, I would say mid part of Saskatchewan. Very attainable for those who live in Saskatchewan and even Manitoba and the neighboring province of Alberta. We'd love to see as many CFNers there. If you are interested, you can either get in touch with Legacy member Walter or also Yon Lake Lodge themselves and make sure you pay your deposit and get her done so we can see some great pics of fish like this. But it is quite a fishery, and we're looking forward to seeing all our CFNers that show up there. Also, in regards to 2022 and how it's going to look from a partnership standpoint, I'm very, very pleased to announce that, of course, you've probably already seen the post. We have Camp McIntosh has jumped on in a huge way. Camp McIntosh has joined us from a financial standpoint and are helping support us in a way that they haven't before. And I'm telling you, we're over the moon about it. Great, great place to visit, to fish, to have a meal, share some stories. Camp McIntosh, we're hoping we can put together a retreat there. As of right now, Thanksgiving weekend was the designated slot for that. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. I haven't heard a lot of feedback in terms of people being interested in doing that, but we are going to definitely try to fit something in because it's the midpoint of the province, and we want to take people fishing. We want to get folks fishing, and I want to thank them, of course, for the hoodie. Great people, Tracy and Andre, just fantastic people. And if you know the lodge, you know what I'm talking about. The fishing's phenomenal, and it's literally within, throwing a football from the dock. You don't have to go far. Also, we were down at Ugly Boys Baits this past weekend. I want to thank the Ugly Boy Baits family for jumping on like they did last year. They provide our CFN Fish Off and all of our events some great prizes. And to Bruce and the whole family, thanks so much for your support. And thanks for an incredible fish fry. Outdoor Flavors was the seasoning of choice. And of course, a big shout out to George, who helped catch some of the fish that we ate, as well as some of the beautiful drawings that she made for me. She was really excited to see me. So it's really cool. When you can put a smile on somebody's face, you know what? It's a good day. It's a great day. Last but not least, ladies' night for the month of December is coming up. It will be December 13th. Yvonne was talking to me today. Really cool what she wants to do. This will be her segment. She wants to come on here and discuss what the ladies' nights are going to look like in 2022. So this is a shout out to all of our female anglers who are out there. Yvonne wants you to show up. She wants to know who you'd like to see or what you'd like to see in 2022 on the ladies' night segments. So, tune in, have your say, voice a comment, and give us some ideas, because Yvonne is all ears, as am I, and I would love to hear what you folks would love to see from a ladies' night perspective. And of course, she is also she's also mentioned that a special Xmas straw will be planned on that day as well, that will involve doing something nice for somebody. I think we all know how to do that. and the fact that you can be rewarded for it. Yeah, baby. Well, I've done enough talking. How we doing? Bill White's in the house. Colin Stas. Yeah, baby. Yeah, there it is. Thanks, Walter. There's the website for Yon Lake. Camp McIntosh, Jeanette's in there big time. And well, look at you guys. Steve would be honored to see you guys doing this. Honored. That's fantastic. Walter's look at you. Oh man, that's fantastic. What's up, Kevin? How you doing? I received the Lancaster lure from Serena Slashon. It's a thing of beauty. Beautiful. I love how things work out, Dave. That's great to see. Lori, yes, condolences to all the family. Our thoughts and prayers are definitely with all of the above mentioned that has brought our flag to half mast. And thanks to Barry and Sally for making that happen. Well, you know what? Without further ado, I want to bring in our next guest. And with we can't do it without that video. And here it is. So Jim's coming up next, but here's a word from our sponsor. Jim, we got to put one of those videos together that features you, man.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. How you doing, dude?
Same shit, different day, buddy.
What did the day look like for Jim McLaughlin?
It was like up to here,
Uh-huh.
good stuff, whatever. Had a whole bunch of things I had to do today that I had to get done, so I got some of them done.
Right.
And basically, that's the way it ended. Run until the last minute, 5:30 to 5 to 7.
Well, listen.
The golden years.
Yeah, the golden year. Well, listen, when I don't hear from you on a Monday, I know you're busy. You're either at the gym, you're tying jigs, or you're with your lovely wife, Tammy. Tell us how she is. Tell us the latest.
Well, we still haven't heard from the folks at the hospital. I know it takes time. It's one of those things. So she was not good today. She was like the worst she'd been since we brought her home.
Oof.
And so she called her doctor. Her doctor called her right back. And her doctor will call the hospital tomorrow. And her doctor is like her nickname's Warthog to me. She's a beautiful lady, but boy, oh boy, does she get stuff done.
Wow.
I wouldn't want to be on the other end of that phone.
Wow.
It won't be pretty. But we carry on, buddy. We carry on.
That's awesome. Well, listen, the good folks are here today. We are still talking ice fishing. I thought one of the best topics for you to discuss, of course, is which line to choose. There is lots to choose from. And, of course, one is better for a different presentation, a different style of hardwater fishing. Share your thoughts. If we're going out and let's say we're not in a hut, we're not in a shack, we have no way to protect ourselves from the element, what would be the best line of choice in that kind of situation?
Well, I'd probably not go fishing.
Okay.
People don't realize how far technology-wise ice fishing has come in the last. Like people don't remember. Like there's still guys sitting on buckets. Like I saw somebody today that's up north that shall remain nameless that was fishing and had a volcano around their hole to make it harder to get the fish out. and I drew attention to it. I need not say any more. And it's just funny little things like that. But it was yeah, no, like it's just come so far now that we fish in comfort. It can be like 35 below zero now outside and a 10-mile-an-hour wind or 20-mile-an-hour wind, and we're still fishing in little huts and things and moving around. And mobility is one of the big keys. Not sitting in the same place all day. That's something that all this stuff really brought to it. But no, like you get days out there that are nice. I mean, a lot of times you're sitting in a little fish house and you fold it down and you sit there because it's nice. Like you get out on the ice and there's no wind and the sun gets out. It doesn't have to get that warm outside for you to feel pretty good out there. But I've really braid. I've got basically two things that I use. I use the Power Pro Ice Tech. I love it. Like I said, I used Power Pro before Shimano bought them. It's that kind of a thing. I used it way before they bought it, and so that was really, really nice. When they bought it for me, it was great. But basically, I fished with with the ice line, and then most of my pan fishing crappie stuff is done with 3 or 4 pound test trilene. It's the ice line. I just love it. It works for me. It's good. I got the spool here. Not sure. I put some line on a bunch of new reels for ice fishing
and really at the end of the day, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Braid is probably in a lot of cases all of our first choice to use to make sure that we have that as a main line. We're usually setting it up with a fluorocarbon leader of some sort and some length based on whatever it is that we're species we're trying to target. I just find that typical Power Pro does hold some water, and there are limitations to Power Pro when it comes to the cold weather. The ice model that Power Pro has, does it somehow repel the water, Jim? What's the properties
it
behind
has a coating on it that repels. But when you think of the old days, you used to see people fishing and they'd have monofilament and there'd be ice on the top of the guide. There'd be ice on the line. If you're out fishing in the open water, you'd have this chunk of ice right at the water level.
Yeah.
Well, you still got ice on your line. So it's not really, I don't really look at it as that big of a factor. And, it doesn't take much with your fingers to keep that off. But I don't mean bending it. I mean, like just holding your hand on the line.
Yeah.
If you get a little spot where it builds up and it melts off. But, it's one of those things, like, I don't think they're ever going to come up with something where you're going to be able to fish ice free on line, like any kind of line. Like it's just, I don't know whether it's physics or what, but it's something that you're sitting there, watching your electronics and, you don't pay attention to the line like you used to. You used to sit and watch your line. Now you watch the electronics. It's a change thing. I don't know whether everybody that ice fishes does it at that level now, but it's definitely changed. It's just not the same. It's a whole different game. Technology.
Now, are you still using braid when you're targeting panfish, or are you going right down to say a mono or fluorocarbon?
I usually use 3 pound test. In the not the Berkeley ice line. Get Jason. He'd be able to tell me the name of it.
Yeah, the trilene micro ice.
Micro ice. That's the stuff. Yeah, Phil got it there. Yeah, that to me is just. I've used it forever. I can't remember when I didn't use it, and it's just. I even use it in open water for bluegills and stuff like that. I'll usually go a little bit heavier for crappies in open water. Just you don't have to retie quite as often, and that type of thing. So you can save a little bit of time. But that and heavier applications, like if you go for walleyes or lake trout or something, maybe 15 pound braid and like a 10 pound fluorocarbon leader, 8 or 10 pound fluorocarbon leader. People don't realize that when you're not a maniac with a rod and reel, it's amazing how big a fish you could bring in on light line. You don't have to baby them. You just keep that constant pressure and you fish smart. It's something that really, really works. And a lot of times when I go down to Quinny too, I haven't been down a couple of years. I got to get down out there with Gord though. It's so much fun to do that. It's so clear now too. Like when I started fishing in the Bay of Quinny, it was like a swamp. You know, you didn't have to worry about, you know, you could have used braid tied right to the lure, and it didn't make much of a difference. Now it's, you can look down the hole at 15 feet and watch a walleye come in and eat your bait, which is pretty cool.
I ran into Ed McKenzie last week, and we were talking exactly about the Bay of Quinte and how I remember, and he remembers, you know, he remembers when people could drive right across the bay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that again, I'm not a weatherman, a meteorologist, or Mother Nature. I can't see that happening, at least this year anyway. I don't know about other years, but those might be a thing of the dodo bird. Those days where
definitely change it. But you know, like I think it was a couple of weeks ago we talked about ice fishing, and I was telling you about the guy I was talking with on the Big Rito, and his grandfather or whatever it was telling him about 1964 or something, the year the big Rito didn't freeze. You know what I mean? Like that's like, you know, that's back when it was, we used to get those minus 35 days all the time.
Yeah.
So for that,
great, some great. I have never even thought of this, but Corey, thanks for bringing this up. There's been others here as well. When it comes to braided line, to prevent your rod guides from getting ice on them, use chapstick on the guides to prevent ice, as well as putting a light layer of wax on your braided line. And someone else also mentioned about using a silicone spray. Jim, you ever heard of that or tried that yourself?
I haven't done it. Yeah, I've heard about that. I know a lot of guys that do that. A lot of guys. There's I forget what the stuff was called. I can't remember the name of it, but it was something that they used to spray on line. It was like Line Magic or something. And if you sprayed that on the line, and you only have to have it on the part of the line that's in the water, right? So, I mean, I do know guys, I've watched guys out fishing with them, and they take a chapstick and they rub it on their fingers, and they rub their fingers up and down on 3 or 4 feet of the line. And if you're fishing for bluegills in 26 feet of water, then you rub it, you know, on that 4 or 5 feet of line that you're always going to have out when your jig gets down there, and it's at the water, and it doesn't freeze up. And then, you know, like just the guides, you know, how much bigger they make them on rods now and stuff like that helps. But you can also just rub, you know, and it just takes a minuscule amount. It just, I mean, if you have it on your fingers and you rub them and then just rub it on the line, it's all it takes. It doesn't take much at all. And you can do the same thing on the tip top. Right?
Yeah.
It definitely works.
Chris brings up a great point. And you know what? Some of us maybe underutilize the use of our drags, but you know, he has attested to bringing up 15-pound plus Lakers on 10-pound braid and 8-pound fluoro. Drag is your best friend. And Jim, talk to us about the importance of making sure your drag is set properly when ice fishing.
Yeah, it's really, you know, when you set the hook, you want to hear the drag. Like when you lift the hook to set it, you should just hear a little bit of a buzz. Maybe just a split second. You don't want to hear because then you're not getting the hook set. But you know, you want to just hear just a little touch of it, just a little smidge, and then you're pretty well good. You know, in the old days, Scottie, we used to back reel because we didn't trust the drags. And then, you know, a few years ago, Shimano took the anti-reverse off their reels, and people said, "Why did you do that?" And well, that's how confident they are now in the engineering on the drags. Yeah. If the drags are adjusted properly, you don't have to worry about it. You know, most drags just to take a sharp jerk to get them started. You can take Shimano and just hold the line between your fingers and pull, and the drag will work. You know.
Yeah.
And this is why with the, you know, more with the high end stuff, that they took the anti-reverse off, because they didn't really need it. It was just extra weight and a cost and a feature that people didn't use anymore. But I mean, the Lindners made back reeling famous.
Yes.
But that was back when drags just didn't work. I mean, there's a famous piece of muskie footage, and I'm not going to get into companies and things, but you see a guy set the hook on a fish at boat side doing a figure eight, and that fish takes off, and you see the drag go zick, zick, zick about 2 feet as the fish goes, and then you see the line break. You know, and it's just a wondrous figure eight too. Like the fish is just absolutely primed, and it's just a vicious hit. He sets the hook and it's gone, and it's just like you actually hear the drag zing and it stops, zing it stops, zing it stops, snap, and you hear the line pop. Yeah. You know, it was probably like 40-pound monofilament or something back then, And plus there was all that stretch with the mono, and it just goes off like a shotgun. You hear it, and stuff like that just doesn't happen now. You still got to watch it don't freeze though.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay just posted the link to it's called Stanley's Ice Off Paste, and it's from Loon Outdoors if you're interested in getting some. Barry uses Pam, and Alicia would like to say that that's a great idea, and you can cook dinner with it as well. So
I thought he was giving us a cooking tip.
Well, not yet. I'm sure it's coming though. I'm sure it's coming. And yes, David, it keeps your lips moist too. I'm not sure if we're still talking fishing or what we're talking about, but
lock the ice shack door.
Yeah. when we're picking reels now, of course, you and I are partial to Shimano, but there's a lot of other reels out there as well that are geared strictly towards ice fishing. If you're without getting into product names, what are you looking for in a good reel for ice fishing?
Scottie, it's really simple. It's all about size. It's the most important thing in the drag. Like, I think the most common thing you can use is just like a 1000 series size reel for most of your fishing. That's just a Stratic. You can use a 500 series. If most of my panfish stuff is all 500s, which is a little bit smaller, because you don't really need it, and it's just better to do when you're doing it. I see guys out there and they go buy a nice little rod with a nice tip on it. It's great for bluegills, and then they take a 3000 reel that they have 50-pound line on in the summer, and they want to fish with that on the rod, and it's like three quarters the size of the rod. It just doesn't work. Like, things like that always end not nice. You don't have a good time using it. Now, I understand everybody doesn't have the money to buy them too. There is but I think if you stick with proven brands, it'll help you. I know there's a real movement toward the inline reels.
Yes.
And they've got some of them are pick up the line a little bit faster now. I never, being with HT, they've got lots of them, and I never liked inline reels. I don't know what it was. I just didn't see the purpose to it. And I know they tell you it doesn't twist the line, but I tell you, if you fish properly, line twist isn't a big deal. You shouldn't have a problem with that. Like, if you're not turning the handle when the drag's going, stuff like that. If you have your lures rigged properly so they don't spin in the water all the time, you don't have to worry about that. So it's one of those things. But that's something new that came out. It's probably been a decade now they've been around. And you see more and more people with them.
It's a great point you bring up, Jim, and I see it a lot. When folks are out on the ice and they are jigging and perhaps they're not using a swivel or what have you. Is there anything that you can do to prevent line twist? The other is, once it's happening, is there anything you can do while on the fly to remove that line twist? Do you just cut that line, put it in your pocket, and retie a little bit further into the spool?
No, it's the one thing you can do is put on a good swivel, and that doesn't mean a brass barrel swivel or something like that, because they're just not going to spin. It's got to be a really good ball bearing swivel, and like, buy a brand name like Sampo or Roscoe or something like that. One of the ones that's really, really good. Berkeley has really good ones. In fact, I've got musky leaders here that I just dug out the other day, and I remember building them years ago with single-stranded titanium, but there's, and they had really good swivels, and they've lasted a long time. I've used the leaders for a long time. They were for jerk baits, but there's that. The other thing you can do is just take off your lure, walk like 40, 50 feet away, because you're not going to need more than that. You're fishing down the hole. You're usually fishing less than that. Let the line out. I just leave it on the surface. Just pull it out, come back, hold your fingers tight on it, reel it in really slow, and it'll unwind itself, just the same as you would do in a boat, letting your line out the back, making sure that it gets away from the motor before you start to move, and just drag it a little bit. You have to drag it for like 50 yards in a boat, and it just unwinds in the water. And the same thing will happen on top of the ice, and it doesn't damage it. You're not stepping on it or doing anything bad to it like that. So, well,
Sparkus, that's a great tip. 3 feet at a time, just pull it tight. Absolutely. That's the best, really, outside of cutting your presentation off, pulling out the twisted line and retying. This will work as well. But definitely, as Jim has mentioned, a swivel definitely takes that away. we are seeing a lot of folks that do really enjoy using the inline reels. I do believe Shimano is coming out with one, if they haven't already, Jim. I'm hoping I'm not
We don't
pulling.
have one now.
What's that?
We haven't got one right now.
No, no. But I do believe that there is talk that Shimano might be coming out with one of those reels. Stay tuned for that. But yeah, in regard, but yes, in regards to lines and fluorocarbon, does it really matter at when it comes to hardwater fishing what fluorocarbon you're using? Does it have to be 100%? Can it be coated? Tell us a little bit about what is important, Jim.
I don't think it's a big deal. I've got a couple, spools of, leader material. I just got into the habit of just using some Sunline. I don't work for it. I have nothing to do with them. I have really good results with it. And I took all my line back out to the garage. I was sitting out there the other day doing some stuff, and I spooled up some new reels for next year, for this year. But it's, I don't get excited about that kind of stuff. I really don't. It's there's so many good brand names with that stuff out there. The most important thing is the knot that you attach it with. I think it's more important than what you're tying together. The knot's more important than the piece of fluorocarbon to me. It's
so really and I'm glad you jumped to that. Let's talk about that briefly, Jim. What knots should we be using for what presentations?
I'm not a knot guy. I would just do a double uni. If JP's listening, he'd be freaking. But I just do a double uni. It's simple. I retie it often. If I catch a bunch of fish, I won't hesitate to retie it. And I'm not as fast at tying knots, especially ones that require a whole bunch of dexterity now and stuff like that the same way. But I take the time to do it. And I can't remember the last time I broke a knot. I say that, from the bottom of my heart. I cannot remember. And it's just, retying it is the whole deal. If you're using a swivel, remember when you tie it, you got to retie both sides. I know so many guys that they got the swivel tied to their main line, and they retie, and then all of a sudden it breaks, and the swivel's gone. Well, that means it was your main line that broke, and I see that happen with guys. So it's you really need to pay attention to it.
Well, I'll tell you, if you are paying attention, you're getting some incredible information from the audience. Mark Elbeck is basically put up that for inline, the Pflueger Presidential spooled with 4-pound straightforward is epic for perch. I don't see too many people that would argue that. The 3-pound Attila loves his 3-pound Berkeley micro ice. But obviously a lot of stuff. The FG knot, if you know how to tie it line to line, that is a great piece of advice right there. The benefit of inline reels, this is Jay here. The benefit of inline reels is being able to use fluoro straight with no leader needed. FC has low stretch, and with the inline reel, you won't get the line twist like a spinning reel, 100%. What about a bait caster, Jim?
I haven't brought a bait caster on the ice in 15 years.
Yeah.
Last time I used the bait caster was when Berkeley used to make lightning rods for bait casting for ice fishing.
Wow. And
I had a couple of those, and I used to drag them back and forth. And then eventually they sat in the cupboard for five or 6 years. And I don't know, I gave one to the kid next door where we lived on the farm. It's just, just put that. Got some new goodies today.
Yeah, baby, I like it.
You know what I really like too? And our hoodies showed up from Vexilar. They got the Canadian flag on one arm, and they got the American flag on the other arm.
Nice.
I thought that was a nice touch.
That is a nice touch. Very nice touch. Well, I mean, let's face it. A lot of those machines are purchased up here in Canadian. Yeah, so it's nice to see that they're speaking to their clientele. Jim, as always, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I saw a clip the other day from one of the these local ice fishing shows they have in the U.S. Probably be about the size of the Ice Fishing Expo, and it's from one little town, because there's just so many people in the interest in ice fishing. Probably in Minnesota, Wisconsin, I would imagine. And there's a guy has a booth, and all he's selling is Vexilars.
Wow.
And they are stacked up, I don't know, probably 6 deep. And 10 or 15 high in this big wooden strapping frame that they built up. And they're literally standing there going, give me your money. Give me your money. It was just like, it's amazing to watch, like believe me, there's still a place for flashers in your fishing.
Oh, 100%.
There's still I guess so many people say to me, they see me out there with the FL30 or FL28 or whatever. Are you still using that old stuff? Yeah, it's once you learn to use it.
And it's technology that's going to be around for a very long time.
And it's technology that's been around.
It's been around for a very long time.
How they apply it in the machine that makes the difference now.
Yeah.
There's so many things out there too. Like a lot of guys say to me, they talk about power and crystals and things, and then I talk to the guys from Vexilar about it, and like the guy explains to me, who's the expert on the whole thing, if you want to talk to anybody, and he says, well, we don't have to use this crystal and that crystal. And I said, well, how come? And he said, well, because it's the quality of the crystal that we use in the machine.
Wow.
And a lot of the other guys are using really, inexpensive crystals. And that's, that's just the way it's done. But, Vexilar continues to sell the units like they do. They're sold out again this year. Like they will, if I called right now and asked for one, probably not going to happen. Come in the fall.
Yeah, kidding.
Hey, I've spent a lot of days with a Vexilar at the front of my boat, lake trout fishing in the summer.
You're not alone, Jim. I hear a lot of folks doing the same thing.
On the Minn Kota, you get the little adapter cables.
Yep.
I used to use that. It beat the heck out of anything I could get at the time in a graph. It beat the heck out of anything when I used to do it all the time. And I mean, when I know.
Yeah.
There's no waiting. When the fish are there, they're there.
100%.
And that's the whole thing is the real time, right? So, but
100%. Jim, our time always flies, dude. Your wealth of knowledge. Thanks so much for doing this each and every Monday. And
I got in a week or two we'll have Mr. Mercer on.
Yes.
Yeah.
The one and only. Wow.
Yeah. I visited with him for breakfast there last week.
Yeah.
And we spent the morning together heckling each other.
Well, I'm just concerned who will be hosting the show, Jim. I think I might take a back seat in honor of Dave.
We'll just let him do it.
I would love for him to host the show.
You'd have to have the 5-second mute button handy.
Right on. Well, folks, stay tuned to that. Dave Mercer, Facts of Fishing, will be joining us, courtesy of our good buddy Jim, who organizes some great guests that do show up from time to time with our fireside chats. Jim, have yourself a great week. Give our love to Tammy, and you stay classy, my friend.
And all you guys out there, be safe on that damn ice. I don't care if you live in Tuktoyaktuk or you live in downtown Toronto. It's all relative.
Amen, brother. Well said. Right on. Well, Jim, you take care. Have yourself a great week, and we'll talk to you real soon, bud.
Honey, start the car.
Start the car. Right on. Before we bring in Lawrence and talk about what you should choose when you're choosing an ATV or snow machine when it comes to hardwater fishing, here is a message from Camp McIntosh, a proud sponsor of CFN. Good evening, Lawrence. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, man.
Fantastic. You have a great topic that you've brought for us today, and I really don't know where it's going to go, but I know there's a lot of folks in the audience that have one or the other and prefer one or the other. So we're going to be asking you folks to put it in the comments what you prefer in what situations. But tonight we're going to talk about what if we're going to purchase something to venture out on the hard water. what has certain advantages when it comes to a snow machine? What are the pros and cons? And of course, what are the pros and cons with an ATV?
Yeah, running and gunning and is great. And keeping the load light, at the beginning of the season is really important too. So, I have a bucket. I have a little sled that I pull my bucket in and my auger and my minnow bucket and things like that. And yeah, and that sometimes that's the best thing. I mean, it's the only thing, right? When you're fishing on the edge of open current and things like that on rivers where you're into 3 or 4 inches of ice and you don't want to be bringing a big machine. But to be honest, as I was getting more into flip overs, and I realized, the better flip overs that I wanted were up over 100 pounds, easily 115, 120 pounds. And that's just load that up with gear and it just gets a little heavy, right? To haul around by hand. Even if you got 2 people in the yoke, it's just too much.
It is. And, it's not that we're trying to discourage folks from venturing out on the ice by foot, because that's how they do it. That's how they enjoy it. And that's what they can afford. But if you've, managed to put a little bit of money away and you're looking to purchase either a sled or an ATV, hopefully we're going to be able to help you decide and make that decision for you. Obviously, one of the biggest pros, as you just mentioned, with an ATV, a little bit less weight than a snow machine. I also would suggest that, the displacement of that weight is a little bit better with an ATV, but, some of those big quads, they can be just as heavy as a sled.
Yeah, my sled weighs 800 pounds and I have a 12-foot trailer and it barely fits in there, right? Tip of the skis to the back bumper barely fits in. So that's a 12-foot long, extra long seat, extra long track, 3-cylinder snowmobile. And it's 800 pounds. Gone are the days of these little 2-stroke, 2-cylinder machines that you can, 2 guys can load up and put in the back of a truck, right? Those days are long gone. The snowmobiles this day are heavier. And like I said, ATVs, if you want to make your way through, any sort of thickness of snow and pull someone and pull a sled, you need a bigger ATV. You can't just get away with a 250 necessarily. You're going to just bog down and you're going to be frustrated. So yeah, you need a little bit of horsepower, no matter which you choose.
100%. Those 4-stroke sleds definitely carry a lot more weight than their 2-stroke counterparts. I don't know that it's necessarily a discussion that we'll have about speed, but in terms of performance, a sled, it really does. It's the ease of use, and you don't have to worry, as Barry said, in terms of how thick the snow is or how deep the snow is. A sled will always seem to find its way through. If you have pressure cracks or certain anomalies that you're going across on the ice, the sleds will find its way. Now, that is the advantages of a sled, that, you don't necessarily have to worry too much about the snow conditions on the ice. You might want to think about putting studs on your track if there is no snow on the ice and you have good thick ice. So that is definitely something to consider. But in regards to an ATV, you mentioned, a 250 series. I would say a good entry level ATV would be, say, 450 and up. Would you agree, Lawrence?
Yeah, you gotta, if you're going to be pulling a load, that's why you're buying it, right? Because you're going to be pulling a sled full of gear and maybe another guy on there with you. You need at least a 450, and then because you're not just driving on pavement, you're driving on a frozen lake or river, and there's going to be snow. And Bay Quint is the exception, right? I mean, Bay Quint almost never has snow. It's always blown away. It's always just sort of crunchy snow or ice. And or if there is, there's plenty of people that have been there before you, so there's a good track to follow. But up where I go, there's no tracks. There's no guidance at all. So yeah, you're cutting your own trail, and I can do that on my snowmobile. I can cut a trail into 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow, and without fear of getting bogged down and getting stuck.
Yeah, and this is Richard saying this right now. Of course, Snow depth is not good with an ATV, and is there any advantages to putting on chains? Is, folks who have ATVs out there, where is the limit or the line in the sand when, I got to put on chains? Or,
Well, those little track systems that you can buy for your ATV,
yeah,
and they're about $3,000. You take your wheel off, you attach this sort of pyramid shaped 3-wheeled track system on each wheel, and it becomes like a little sort of tank, right? With each wheel has its own individual track system. But the problem with that is you're spitting a lot of snow with those tracks. It's a lot of snow's flying in your sled. A lot of snow is flying into your U joints and into your system. And from what I understand from people telling me, the boots on the front steering system that protect the front steering system, they can get impacted with snow, and then that'll freeze up and get hard. And the only way you can deal with that, if you try to bust it off, you'll bust your rubber boots, that protect all that steering mechanism on the front end of your ATV. You have to almost bring it inside your heated garage to let it thaw out before you go use it the next day. And to me, that's, even if you go and spend, $3,000 on this track system for your ATV, you're still dealing with some issues around impacting snow, affecting the handling of your machine.
Now, one machine that we have not spoke of that definitely has the advantages of, well, it has a lot of advantages. One, it floats. So you don't have to worry about getting yourself into a bad situation. But Alicia loves her Argo.
Yeah.
And yes, Argos definitely have a lot of advantages. They also have the ability to be fit with tracks. So they are a little bit more expensive. I believe, Alicia, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they do have some serious advantages. You can put a cover over top of them so you can be heated on the way up to the hole. They float. Did I mention they float? So it doesn't matter what position you're in. If you find yourself in a precarious situation that unfortunately involves some open water, you can find a way across that. I don't necessarily would suggest doing that, but let's face it. You want to stay dry. You want to stay above the water, and an Argo can definitely do that for you.
A friend of mine's the CEO of Argo, and he took over, I think, 5 years ago, and they're working with some NASA projects now with that technology, in terms of off Earth rovers. It's very similar technology, and NASA's looking to save costs on this type of equipment, but it's still double the price of a snow machine or an ATV once you're into something like that. But I would say, if you had an island property and you wanted to access your island property year round, that's the way to go. Because, the problem with island properties is you got that late fall where the ice just isn't thick enough to walk across or to take a machine across on the ice. So having this Argo, safety wise, knowing that you could break through the ice and you'd be fine. And the same in the spring as well, right? So it gives you that shoulder season access to your cottage property. Argo is definitely good. Or if you're going through a lot of wetland and, off road and where you're passing through a lot of wetlands, and it's definitely has some advantages, but they're not cheap.
No, 100%. But definitely, and then of course, the last but not least, you can get into a hovercraft system.
I saw one on Big Rito a couple of years ago. Noisy. Very noisy.
They are noisy, and they're not great if you're an angler beside them or in the the downdraft of that big fan that spins.
Yeah,
those are hurricane force winds that come out of the back of that thing, and that you're going to have a bad time if you're in the draft of that. It's going to get awfully cold, awfully quick, and you're probably not going to see anything for a little while.
I even had looked into side by sides for a while, and I thought, now there's a family machine, if you're going to take your family and you want to go ice fish, this is something that gets 4 or 5 people. If you get the 2-row seaters, 3 and 3, you can even get 6. But then you look at the weights of those side by sides, and now you're got a trailer to put your side by side that you're pulling with your truck, your SUV, to go out to the ice. So you're basically towing a vehicle out to the ice so you can drive a vehicle out onto the ice. you might as well just drive your truck or your car out on the ice. It's almost the same thing, right? I mean, yeah, they're not as heavy as a full-size pickup truck, but they're not light. They're not light.
Yeah. And they're, Kevin's, when I win the lottery too, but a snow bear is definitely in the near future. That's
cool.
There's no better way to travel out on the HardWater than that. And they come in handy, especially out where Kevin is on Big Windy. You can get out of the wind and stay warm and fish out of them as well. They've got holes in the bottom. It's basically an ice hut that moves. It's a brilliant concept. But yeah, they are a pretty penny.
I think Bob Azumi has one.
I've seen him in one many times.
Yeah.
I don't know if he actually owns them, but I've seen him fish out of them lots.
It's amazing, eh? But you know what? I love a snowmobile. I bought my first snowmobile when I was 16 years old, and ran that for 5 years, and had friends, and we rented cottages up in the Muskokas every winter. We'd rent it for the winter off season, get them pretty cheap. And 3-4 guys split on the rental fee, and we would just snowmobile every weekend, snowmobile and ice fish, and a lot of fun, a lot of fun. It's still in my blood. I'm a snowmobiler, but I don't own a big property, right? If I owned a big property, I would probably bite the bullet and go with an ATV, because that's something you can run that year round.
Yeah, 100%. I would have to agree. And snow machines are great when there's snow. They're good when they're iced too, but unfortunately, when there is no snow, there's really no point having a sled. That's just my opinion. ATVs are definitely more universal, and you can use them in all seasons, and that's the beautiful thing. There are limits to them out on the snow, and I do suggest folks getting an aggressive tread if you have the money to do so. Tracks, they have their advantage, but as Barry said, if they freeze up, they're a pain. And usually out this way anyway, we have a lot of slush on our waters, and it can be problematic. Listen, Lawrence, as always, our time flies, but thanks for joining us and discussing this. I hope it shed a little bit of light on those who have not purchased one but are looking to. What do I get? Snow machine, ATV. I would say dollar for dollar, you're going to get more bang for your buck with an ATV. But that's just my opinion.
But just from a pure ice fishing, if that's your thing, and you're the rest of the year you're out in the boat because you don't own a big cottage property or a big woodlot or something like that, or you're not a hunter, just get a snowmobile. You'll be a lot happier in the winter.
That's awesome, buddy. Well, thanks for joining us and discussing that. Thanks again to everyone who is helping out in, I'm going to call it the Steve Shaw Show. So many links being shared for a various number of things. And this is what it's all about. It's about sharing information and getting people that may not know in the know. So thanks again. Lawrence, have yourself a great week. And we look forward to seeing you next week and all the weeks to come.
Thanks, buddy. And thanks everyone for having me.
Right on, brother. All right. Before we bring on our good buddy, Jay Barnucz, there is lots to discuss with Jay. We need to have a word from his sponsor. And here it is.
The fear of failure is failure itself. The world of science rewards the ones who are willing to try and fail. Because without the courage to embrace failure, ideas remain ideas. But with that courage to fail and to learn, ideas can change the world.
J Dog's in the house. How you doing, my friend?
I got to put my ice fishing stuff away. I got all this talk. I'm sitting here tinkering with my stuff.
Well, we want you to tinker with your stuff. In fact, we want to share some secrets. As I said, we were going to give some must-haves, some how-tos, and we were going to dive into your treasure chest of jigs and presentations, what we should be using for what species, what you like for certain species. And I'm going to start with perch, Jay. I do know you love your perch. Obviously it doesn't matter what brands. We're not here to brand drop, but we've done a great job bringing to light a lot of the Berkeley products that are available for ice fishing. But when it comes to perch, what are your go-tos and must-haves?
Man, there's a lot of good options out there, but I'm just going to talk about rods just for another second there, Scottie. You know, like there's been a lot of questions tonight in the forum about rods and line. And, you know, and I know we're going to talk more about ice fishing as we get closer to I'm not going to say closer to HardWater season, because HardWater season is happening in some places, but it's a ways off yet. But, you know, folks are asking what to pick for line. And, Jim, tinkering with my stuff. So look, just read the label on the rod. That's all I ever do. So this is a medium action Fenwick Techna. It's rated 4 to 8 pound test. And I'm going to run 6 pound Fireline crystal on it. And I'm going to run a fluorocarbon leader. And that's it. Like that. And that's what I have on here right now, a 6 pound crystal. And I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that rod all winter. I'll use this for perch. And also, it's a heavy perch rod, but I'll also use it for, you know, smaller walleye, some whitefish. You know, it's a nice sort of middle of the road rod. For a lot of perch fishing, I'm probably going to go with a nice light or a medium light rod. Okay. Most of these are rated 2 to 6 pound test. So what am I going to use for line? It's going to be a bit of a trade-off. There's 2 choices you have to make. If I'm fishing for perch on Lake Simcoe, which a lot of us are going to be targeting, I'm probably going to be fishing deeper than 20 feet of water. In that case, I'm probably going to go with Fireline again. I'm going to go with my crystal or even the darker, the smoke color. Why is that? When I'm fishing deeper than 20 feet, and I do love my Berkeley mono, I'll talk about that in a minute. When I'm fishing deeper than 20 feet, 25 feet, there's a lot of stretch in that mono. The smaller pound tested mono, the more stretch you can have. It doesn't mean you won't catch fish in 25 feet, but a lot of the perch fishing I do on Simcoe is deeper than 20 feet. It's quite often deeper than 30 feet. That's a whole other show to have. But I like to go with a braided line in those situations. Now, there are days where the perch are really finicky, and I do have to get down to maybe I have to fish for them with 2 or 3 pound test fluorocarbon in deep water. That's fine, but I want to use usually a small jig and spoon. What do I got? Yeah, right here. Like it's really hard to beat. You know, whoa, come here. Like, you know, there's a lot of different versions of baits like that, right? You know, a small jig and wrap, small vibratos. You know, those kinds of baits. And when I'm using them on braid, I get down, I have low stretch. I still run just a 3 pound or 4 pound test fluorocarbon leader. That's my favorite perch setup. But if I'm fishing, Scottie, like Long Point Bay, I'm fishing in 8 feet of water and less in Long Point Bay. I'm going to go with my inline reel, okay, and a light action rod, which is rated 2 to 6 pound test. You're going to see a lot of companies now, and I noticed this year, and others may not notice this, but I have. A lot of companies aren't making ultra light ice rods anymore. A lot of rods are rated light, and they're rated 2 to 6 pound test. But what you're seeing is there's a real push towards rods with a really soft tip, okay? So I want you to watch this rod here. Look where this rod loads up. You see that? So you have a fiberglass blank, and on these Fenwick Percept tip rods, you have basically, a graphite blank and a fiberglass tip. So what happens is it's almost like having a built-in spring bobber, okay? And then I'm running 3 pound test. Like it's gotten a lot of praise tonight, and I've been using this stuff even long before I was ever supported by Berkeley. Berkeley 3 pound micro ice. You can ask Jim. There's been some parking lot deals made delivering micro ice to certain people at ice fishing shows at one time or another. I'm just going to say, because Jim might know a guy that has a lot of Berkeley micro ice sitting in his garage. I pretty much all I use is 3 pound test. Why do I use 3? 2 pound test is too thin for my liking. If I'm fishing for perch or crappie, nothing breaks your heart more than losing a big crappie at the hole on 2 pound test. 3 pound test is just at that tipping point where I get the action out of the bait. I'm not going to break off in the hole. And if I go with straight fluorocarbon on the inline reel, fluorocarbon is much stronger than the mono, the breaking strength on it. Like I think the 3-pound micro ice fluorocarbon, in fact, I'll run 2-pound micro ice fluorocarbon. It's stronger than 3-pound mono, the breaking strength of it. And
Wow.
But when we get talking about fluorocarbon, that's a whole other show too, Scottie. But fluorocarbon is, it's not properly rated. Different companies have different fluorocarbons, and steelheaders on who are listening in, they know this. Like somebody will say, "Oh, I'm running 5-pound Drennan." Well, that's like 10-pound Seaguar. Like, you know, you got to look at line diameter. That's the bigger measure of it. But you know, but never overweight your rod is kind of what I'm saying. Put the line on your rod to the specs that you want. But one tip I will give, and Jim touched on this about swapping out the proper line, because one, you don't want to overpower your rod, okay? But two, you know, sometimes you want to have a nice balanced rod too. Like on this is like one of my walleye rods. This is a 36-inch medium heavy, okay? And I'll use this for Lakers too. But that's like a size, that fluker's about a 3, it's called a size 30. For a lot of other companies, it's between a 2,500 and a 3,000. It's kind of in that size. But why I like that is because I got a bigger reel, I have a faster gear retrieve ratio. I'm picking up more line, so if I'm fishing deep. And I have more pound strength of drag. The bigger the reel, typically in most brands, you'll have more drag force. So if I'm running 10-pound braid and I want to put the boots to a big walleye or a big Laker, I can do that with this rod. I can do that with this same rod with a smaller reel, and I won't have the same basically pound test drag. And I know that doesn't seem like a lot for people, but that initial hook set, especially on an ice fishing rod where you can't play your fish as easy because you have a shorter rod, that hook set's really key for me. So I love matching up the reels to the size of fish that I'm fighting. So
And if you're ever fishing lake trout, and I'm sure a lot of our audience has, you can't reel up sometimes fast enough for those chasing lake trout. So it's good to have a bigger spool and a good ratio in order to keep ahead of the fish. But
100%. When you're trying, like when they're chasing, right? Everyone, if you haven't fished for a lake trout, you'll hear about them chasing. Whitefish will do it too. And a fast gear retrieve, and spinning reels, bigger spinning reels have a fast gear retrieve. That is an important thing to have, especially when you're fishing in, 50, 60, 80, 90 feet of water and you want to cover that ground. You're going to do that better with a larger reel. But for the average person, the average ice angler, a nice medium light rod or medium action rod with a size 2000, a size 25 fluger, like I'm using all flugers here. That size 25 is probably the best all-purpose reel for ice fishing. So, and I use these reels year round. Trevor just took them all off our trout and panfish rods. We just put them away 2 weeks ago, and they're all going on the ice fishing rods. They get used year round.
And really, they're not season specific. You can use them throughout the year. Yeah,
100%.
Well, listen, we shared an article, and I think it's really important, Jay, that you and I touch on this, that Gord Pizer wrote. Don't necessarily want to get into all the details of the article. I just think it's really important. This year I've had many conversations with folks that think with the price of everything going up, that more fish are going to be taken this year than any other year, if in fact we have a half decent hardwater season. But in the recent article that Gord wrote, he's emphasizing the importance of catch and release. And it's something that we talk about at great length here. But, just to discuss, fish are usually somehow, especially the walleye, they're getting ready for that spring spawn. They're schooling up. They're in areas that they're very susceptible to being targeted. And with electronics the way they are, we can find them, on a dime. And when we do, we can sometimes put a real hurting on the fish. And we need to pump the brakes a little bit and understand that, whoa, wait a minute, I'm fishing in 50 feet of water. If I catch a trophy walleye, I'm not going to be releasing it. Or perhaps maybe if I'm on this school of crappie, I don't want to catch every single one because I want to make sure that there's fish here for the future. What's your take on it? I would imagine it's probably the same.
Yeah, it is. And I think that, Gord has really been talking about the last couple of years, and we've brought it up on this show, the word greed. Okay. And our possession limits are so broad that, catching and keeping a limit of walleye on Lake Erie compared to a limit of walleye on Cameron Lake in the Kawarthas, a small lake in the Kawarthas, it has a completely different impact. Okay. We just really need to make sure that as anglers, we are stewards of our resources. And, as much as we love to catch a meal of fish, it's not every week. We shouldn't be doing that. In the article, Gord talks about how there's some lakes where he's really spent the time and dialed in some honey hole walleye spots, and to the point where he doesn't want to go back to those spots or show people where those are. Like he talks about having the snow cover his tracks. It's because ice fishing is a unique sport, in that a unique part of angling, in that ice fishing is really efficient at angling. Like for some lakes, like Lake Simcoe, most of the fishing pressure comes through the winter. In the article, I think it mentions Green Bay, Wisconsin, where way more harvest happens in the winter than during the summer months. And especially as ice anglers, we need to be good stewards of our resources. And that means, practicing catch and release, practicing selective harvest, and doing the right thing. And especially if you're fishing high pressured waters, like there's a couple areas around here that are small bodies of water that I target panfish in the wintertime. And I keep very few panfish from those places. I used to probably keep more than I should, and I've stopped doing that. And because I really feel that there's what people keep way too many fish when they ice fish. And don't get me wrong, I love eating fish, and I especially love eating fish that are caught through the ice. I find the flesh is much more palatable. It's just a good time of year to eat a fish. But I really think that as anglers, and I think Gord's message is clear, that we need to be much more aware of the impact we're having. And Scottie, you and I were talking backstage before the show about Lake of the Woods and some of the issues with Lake of the Woods. Some of these major fisheries that are having a hard time. And I think that, we're going to see more of these kinds of editorial type articles that we really should read them and take some of that information to heart, because we all have a responsibility to protect our resources and conserve our resources and educate other anglers. And that's what a big part of talking with you tonight on Monday nights and everybody else here.
It's so true. And, I would never speak for Gord, but I certainly get a sense of urgency. He's always spread the word and the importance of catch and release. But now that he sees his worst nightmare happening in his own backyard, and I'm not saying that it's Lake of the Woods necessarily, it could be another body of water, but I get that genuine concern from Gord. And I think, folks, we need to pay heed to it. I don't think it's, it's not like saying to someone, okay, you're getting in a car, put on your seatbelt. To put on your seatbelt, but we need to, as much as we think of getting in a car and the importance of putting on your seatbelt, we need to understand the importance at this point about catch and release. And, Kevin, that's a great point you bring up. Getting a live scope hasn't changed my fishing ethics. It's definitely made you a better angler, because you're able to be efficient, as Jay has said, in catching your fish. But, understanding the importance of releasing those big fish and being selective in your harvest and making sure that we're not targeting fish too deep, that we're not going to be able to have that ability of releasing, it all plays into part. Very 100%. Yeah, we eat enough at the CFN retreat, and I'll be honest with you, you hit the nail on the head for me, Barry. That's my harvest for the year is the CFN retreat, and I do it for the community. I love seeing people enjoy a good fish fry. I think it brings people together, and anybody who's been to the retreat understands the importance of those campfires at the end of the night. They're so cool.
Yeah, you know what? And the thing about ice fishing is a very social sport. We talked about this last year on the show quite a few times, Scottie, and how, during the current state of the world, how being social is important, because a lot of us have been, isolated from people. And ice fishing long before this pandemic, ice fishing has been a great social activity that a lot of us have enjoyed. And, I get a lot of crazy looks the last few years when people watch me releasing quality fish back down the hole without even flinching. Like, up it comes, picture, back down the hole. And people are scratching their heads that some of the fish that we let go. And it's been an education for them to actually watch us release fish. And especially, I think, watching my kids release their prize catches, and that my kids, they actually don't even ask to keep fish. They actually it's just second nature. They just put it back, right? Unless I say, okay, I have to tell them in advance, okay, we're going to keep a few fish tonight. Here's the plan. Here's how many I want to keep. If I'm planning on harvesting some. But in the end, our family's been doing catch and release for years, and it's an education. So I encourage everyone who goes out there, when you're on the ice this winter, just try and spread that word a little bit. I think that there are, and I'm going to tell you one from a scientific standpoint, from and I don't work with fisheries management. A lot of the fisheries management information I share on this show is just out of my pure professional and personal interest. It's not what I get paid to do. But I'm going to tell you up front that ice fishing is really hard on fisheries. It really is. And we owe it to ourselves to make sure that we practice selective harvest and release fish. But keep some fish. Teach people how to clean fish, how to enjoy fish. You have that fish fry. It's all about those memories. Even last year, one day we'd have a fish fry. We cooked burgers on the ice with friends. I remember Trevor having his first double stack burger on the ice. He had a bluegill rod. He was fishing for a bluegill in one hand. He had a double cheeseburger in the other, right? Like, that's ice fishing, man. Ice fishing is all about memories like that.
I was going to say, who's done that? I'm guilty. Absolutely. Food in one hand, fish in the other.
Like, is there anything better than a nice, barbecued sausage on the ice, man? Like, 100%. And fish is great, but just having good food and being with good friends is just a fantastic way to spend your time, especially on a frozen lake.
100%. Mike, you bring up a great point, and no offense taken. I do believe that limits need to be revisited. I think they're, some of them anyway are archaic. They don't necessarily speak to the fishery, and it is concerning for some of us why we need to catch 100 perch in an outing. Yeah. But keep it in mind, and I think this is where a lot of the confusion has started. The daily catch limit and your possession limit. In my opinion, they have always been the same thing. And I think it's really important for folks to know that the limits are there to protect us from being greedy. But as Walter said, we should not be trying to get our limit. We should be just trying to go out and have a good time fishing.
Yeah, and I think there's a good message too when we talked about this backstage, and I'll finish with this. For those of us that fish regularly, and we have our good, we got our good finger on the pulse of a local lake, okay? And so I can go out to a local lake, and let's say I ice fish it 20 times in a winter, and I might only have 3 good days out there, like where it's good days, where it's like fish after fish after fish, okay? Most of those days I don't do that well. We catch some nice ones, but we're not catching large numbers. But, someone goes out to one of those same lakes, and they hit the mother load, and they don't go out there very often. And then they go out there one time, and they hit the mother load because it was the right time of day. It could be the right barometric pressure, the right moon phase, the right whatever. And they hammer them, and they think, wow, this fishery must be doing really well because we just caught 30 of the biggest bluegill that we've ever caught here in 20 years. And they take them all home because they haven't been out there a whole lot, and they think, this is great, but they've just done harm to a small fishery perhaps, right? And the same can be said for even on big lakes like Lake Simcoe. Like, what do you need to keep 13, 14-inch perch for? If you want to catch a limit of perch to take home, some nice 8 to 9-inch perch, 10-inch perch are just fine. You don't need to keep 12 and 13 inches. Just because you're catching them doesn't mean that. Don't assume the fishery's in great shape. Just be selective and just keep what you're going to eat too. That's a big part of it too. I mean, eat like right away. Like, don't fill your freezer, because we talk about catch and possession limits, right? So be sensible.
100%. Jay, that is probably the best way we could end your segment. As always, dude, thanks so much for what you bring to the table and to our community. We are that much more knowledgeable, and I think we enjoy fishing that much more every time we speak to you, Lawrence, and Jim, each and every Monday. So let's keep it going.
Thanks, everyone. It's been great. And yeah, keep getting that ice fishing stuff ready. Like, listen, and I'm not going to plug too much, but we just got Trevor's flasher back from Vexlar.
Yeah.
Sent it to Minnesota. The FL20 is working great. It was a $25 repair. Shipped it there back in 2 weeks. We're good to go, baby. Like, the ice huts are in the garage. We're rocking, man. We are the lithiums or batteries are charging. Lake Simcoe power boxes are charged. I'm going to keep steelheading. I love steelheading, but we're getting ready, man. Getting ready.
Right on. Thanks as always, Jay. Have yourself a great week, and we'll see you next Monday.
All right. See you guys.
Okay, buddy. You take care. And I would say the best way to close this, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for all of your incredible comments. I love seeing that kind of participation. And also a big shout out, thank you on behalf of Steve Shaw, who normally does a lot of the tagging. You folks did a phenomenal job tagging tonight. Steve will be so proud to see you filling the void. As always, thanks so much. Love you all. And in closing, I think the last word should be the man himself, Gord Pizer, reminding us that it's not about catching limits. Have a listen. Have yourself a great week, and we'll see you next week. All the best, guys. Take care. Peace.
And nobody understands, or very, very few people, and you guys have heard this all the time. The ministry, Saskatchewan government, allows me to have 4 walleye, so there can't be a problem. That's not what a limit is. A limit is if you don't know when to stop, we'll tell you when the maximum level of greed is. And it's 4 fish. It's not a target. It can't be a